Hey guys, this is On Fire Fitness, and this is your host, Mitch Stokes. Joining me today is John Matulevich from Ruthless Performance. John?
Hey, what's up?
And today we wanted to talk about a few things to look for when shopping for a trainer. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of individuals and personalities on social media and the rest of the internet advertising themselves as so-called fitness instructors or fitness and health experts. And we wanted to take the time to educate the public, educate the listener on qualities to look for, things to kind of avoid, and to set you up for success, because I have seen people get derailed, their fitness and their health get derailed from improper instruction, getting injured, from getting improper advice on health and nutrition, and really messing up their bodies, and it taking a long time to recover from that. So to save everyone the heartache and the funds, we're going to talk about shopping for a trainer today. John, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Okay, yeah. The closest thing I could relate what I do to is some kind of high-level exercise physiology. So most of it's oriented towards kind of the scientific pursuit in the physical realm. And even lately, we've been working more with cognitive strategies to kind of maximize mental performance as well. But it's all very predicated on science. So as opposed to a lot of personal trainers, and honestly, one of my weaknesses and one of the weaknesses of Ruthless Performance, my company as a whole, is the fact that we aren't really motivators. So I guess you could say there's two sides of the spectrum. There's those that are more emotionally oriented and those that are more rationally oriented in their training strategies and methodology. And we're entirely predicated on that rational side of things. So for us, if you're coming to us for training, the majority of the time these athletes they're intrinsically motivated. So they bring the motivation. We don't have to provide that. We just provide the scientific framework for them to get better as athletes and individuals.
Okay, so in a nutshell, from what I gather, you're really not looking to be a cheerleader.
No.
So to speak, which to a degree sometimes it can be almost an obligation when you have someone that's having a hard time during a session, but on a daily basis, like you said, they need to bring their own motivation if they're really serious about what they want to achieve.
Yeah, obviously we provide cues, we provide positive feedback where positive feedback is warranted. But I mean, like you said, if you're looking for a cheerleader, unfortunately, it's something that it's a matter of thinking of things as a flaw versus a feature of a system. And in this case, you could view it as a flaw that this is something that we don't really advocate for. We don't respond to, or we don't really work with. But on the other side of things, like I said, it's not something we're looking for. So one thing to consider when you are shopping for a trainer is not only thinking about are they a good fit for you, but the opposite of that, are you a good fit for them as well?
That's very true. I've had plenty of people come to me over the years that have made remarks that they've gone to a trainer for years prior to coming to our gym, and one of their biggest gripes is, no one's ever fixed me on my squat. No one's ever fixed me on my deadlift. No one's ever said that to me. I didn't realize I was doing these wrong all these years. And they have nothing but nice things to say about these individuals as a trainer. But like we talked about before, they were more of a cheerleader. They're almost like a best friend, like a confidant,
Yep.
And not really doing a good service as far as actually training them, fixing their movement patterns, keeping them from getting injured. And it's unfortunate, and you can really see the look on their face. It looks like disappointment, like, wow, I can't believe I wasted my time that long.
I mean, there's a time and a place for that. But actually, one of the things that I even told an athlete here this morning here at Fluid Fitness was I was working with a golfer, and he was talking about adding load to an exercise that he was doing. And I basically described it as, there's the yin and the yang here, and how it works in my relationship with these athletes is I am perpetually trying to withhold them from jumping in weight. They should perpetually be wanting to add weight, whereas I'm kind of the mechanism that kind of holds them back. So by focusing purely on technique, it can be monotonous for some people, but what their goal is and what their job is to constantly trying to push themselves. And so as long as they're doing that, and so as long as I or my coaching staff are trying to correct their form, we have a pretty good symbiotic relationship in terms of athlete development.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So one of the things I wanted to get into first is, what are you paying for, and why are you paying for it? For those of you that are out there listening that are looking for a trainer, what is it that you want out of your time? This is a busy culture that we live in the Western world. People have multiple jobs. They have multiple responsibilities, 2.5 children and a dog to feed. You really don't want to be wasting your time. And if you're going to be paying decent money for a service, you want to know that you're getting the best bang for your buck. So what are you paying for? You're paying for time and energy that it took to obtain knowledge and experience. You're paying for the personal attention, and you're investing in yourself and your health. For the most part, most of you listening are probably more concerned with your general health and your general physical preparedness rather than your sports performance. But for those that are invested in their sports performance, maybe they're currently active athletes, you want the best that's out there, or the best resources that are available to you. And that's what you're paying for. I get a lot of questions as to, well, why is it that much? Why is it $30 a session? Why is it $40 a session? Whatever it is, you're paying for the experience, and you get what you pay for. I don't like paying for discount used tires, because at the end of the day, I want them to work. I want to make sure that my child in the backseat's safe, and I'm not going to have a blowout on Interstate 78 and go in a tailspin.
Well, one thing to kind of think about, and this goes for any kind of aspiring trainers out there, or trainers as well, or even anyone else for that matter. There's a nice ebook out there called Breaking the Time Barrier, which kind of separates what you're getting from the time. Too many people think of it in terms of the time or individualized attention. Like the way you guys do it here with the group training, some people, for whatever reason, they see that as it's some type of problem, whereas it's actually provides just a motivating, positive environment for everyone. It's extraordinarily uplifting. It's like this, the fact that there's more people here isn't a problem. That's a feature of this. That's what
absolutely. Yeah, and it doesn't fit for everybody. I mean, some people would prefer individualized attention. Maybe they have a specific goal in mind, and that's completely different. We do offer personal training here, but for the general person out there that's just looking to get more fit and healthy, the group model is great, because you have people holding you accountable. Like you said, it's uplifting. You stay motivated a little bit easier, where the general person that doesn't have that self-discipline to maybe hit the gym all the time, no one knows. If you're going to Planet Fitness or other 24-hour fitness facilities, nobody knows if you skip out on a set or skip out on a workout, you didn't show up today. Here, people notice when you're missing for several days. They text you, they call you, the coaches get in touch with you, like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. What's up? You don't get that in an individualized format when you're just going on your own.
That's true.
And again, you're investing in yourself. When we talk about what you're paying for when you're looking for a trainer or a coach or a strength coach, you're investing in yourself. So, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. If you're price shopping out there and you're going for the cheapest out there, you're going to get what you pay for, and it may not be very good. But I want to move on. I want to segue into what do they know, the education level of these trainers or these coaches. What's their education level? What certifications do they hold? Do they hold any certifications? Do they hold a degree? How long have they been in the field? Is it someone that just lost a ton of weight 6 months ago and now they're a fitness expert? There's some beautiful stories of people out there that have altered their lives, changed their lives, and gone on to help other people. But I wouldn't necessarily jump on the gravy train with someone that just started training someone 6 months ago.
I think that's the story of someone who was a good athlete and now thinks that since they were a good athlete, they can now coach as well.
Absolutely.
Two totally different skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Two different things. Not necessarily, people that can do things aren't necessarily good at teaching them, per se. And it's something I've seen, especially on the social media circuit, like on the Instagram and the Twitter. I've had people come up and ask me, hey, what do you think of this? This girl is on this meal plan. She's selling these meal plans. She looks great. Well, yeah, you could eat what she eats, but she's also 110 pounds. And she's like 4'11". You're 5'6". Like,
and how much of the success of some of these people are in spite of some of the things they're doing as well? I think the more out there something may seem, the more less likely it is to work. I mean, if you just look at the body of evidence, if you see 90 research studies that suggest one thing, and then this one crazy out there thing that suggests something else, well, obviously that's going to be the thing that gets more headlines. But these 90 things are peer reviewed and
for decades.
Yeah, and that's probably where the truth lies in all this. One thing just to point out is kind of going back a little bit, but what you're saying about getting what you pay for. Because of that, I think that the buy-in is huge into any kind of program. Like a lot of times that people in my inner circle or my friends group will ask me for programs, but I will not under any circumstances make free programs for people, because then there is no buy-in whatsoever. I mean, to find a program online, there's no accountability. Or even if I was to make a program for someone, I mean, that takes a significant amount of time. And
oh, absolutely.
And for them, there's no follow-through without any kind of buy-in. And the buy-in happens in dollars, unfortunately, or fortunately for that matter.
Yeah. And I've seen, to bring up the programming, I've seen quite a bit of cookie-cutter programs that get sold out there. They get sold to sports performance athletes, weightlifters, powerlifters. Like, well, if you follow this program, this is the program we use for such and such. It's not necessarily going to work for you, for one. And for two, some of these group models with the hey, get on team such and such, we're going to get you ready, lifting big weights. They don't know what meet you're getting ready for. And you're training on this online format with other athletes that may be getting ready to peak for a specific meet. You're 12 weeks out and you're doing heavy singles. Or vice versa, you're 3 weeks out from a major meet. You're not getting ready to peak. They're doing heavy sets of 10 and doing hypertrophy training. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, this speaks to something that I very particularly am exposed to on a regular basis. So I work with a significant amount of swimmers, and of the swimmers I work with, some of them are relatively high level. I've been on some expert panels with some high level strength and conditioning coaches. So people have been asking me for programs that I know of that have been designed specifically for high level athletes. Like, what does Ryan Lochte do in the weight room? What does Michael Phelps do? But the other side of it is whatever they're doing has no bearing whatsoever on what you're doing as an athlete. Just because someone that's reached the pinnacle of performance in their sport is doing something doesn't mean that it's even beneficial for you. I mean, to some extent, you'll see some positive something out of it, but it's not made for you. To get to the highest level of what your performance should be, it should be tailored to you, not to Michael Phelps.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And every athlete's different. I mean, some athletes, like we've talked about before, respond really good to a higher volume. Some athletes don't respond to volume at all. They turn into trash. They're too fatigued. They can't handle it. There's different age groups, different body types, different athlete types.
I've noticed that dichotomy pretty well in terms of like a male-female divide. Males do not do as well with volume as females do.
God, no. We like to max out.
Yeah.
It's a general joke in the weightlifting community, but guys aren't good at handling things like complexes.
No, right? It's true.
But I tell you what, when it's time to turn on a 1 hour max, everyone perks up. Oh, it's max out. My back feels like crap, but let's go.
It's interesting, even at a physiological level, the cause of that. One of the things is estrogen actually has some effects on pain threshold that you do not see with testosterone. And I think it's just an interesting thing to kind of look at that and its relationship to sports performance.
Yeah, absolutely. But getting back into the online format and buying programs for people and looking to people, the one big elephant in the room, especially with strength sports and especially with physique, people aren't considering the fact that some of these people may be on some drugs that aren't necessarily legal.
Yeah.
and they are endorsing a product that maybe themselves don't even use, and then taking advantage and really, it's a little unethical what goes on. But this person's on anabolic steroids. That's why their body fat content's below 10%, and they're able to hold that. And then they're using that physique and those results as some kind of evidence that this product works.
I think
this program works.
So I'll put ethics aside here. I mean, we are in the business of creating winners. So that's one thing in and of itself. But on the other side of that, that kind of goes back to the idea of you being a good athlete versus a good coach. You could be doing things in spite of the fact that it's not necessarily the best thing that you could otherwise be doing. Yeah. So you could be on a suboptimal program and on that testosterone, which again maybe not be legal, but is enhancing your performance. So although a coach may know less, they appear through their results to be being able to produce athletes at a higher level, and it's just not
absolutely.
necessarily the case.
I mean, if the athletes are on drugs, you could just beat the hell out of them with volume and intensity all the time and not really have to back off all that much. You're going to get some awesome results. But, case in point, like Smolov. Do you know how many people have come to me, Coach, I was thinking about trying that Smolov. That is a bad idea, dude. You are a clean athlete, you're 16 years old, and you really only need to squat twice a week right now. Because that's about all you can handle.
Yeah, even some of the initial iterations of Charles Poliquin's German volume training, same thing. Or that 1,000 rep arm workout that he's done.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. So, guys, if they look like they're on roids, maybe not follow the exact plan that they're following. The exercises are probably good.
Yep. Well, and this is, it depends. I'll say, going back to what you said about the physique world, I think those people have their sense of self is so inflated, and what they are doing is so archaic, it's almost unrecognizable in a modern sports performance or even in a modern environment. Just how isolated these exercises are, how much dysfunction they're creating inside their athletes, it's horrendous.
No, it's crazy. So, just to talk about a few, at least for me personally, my opinion, what you should be looking for as far as education in your prospective trainer. There's a handful of certs out there that are pretty good. For me, a USA weightlifting cert, even if you're not a sports performance athlete that you're looking to do something like that, that's an amazing cert. For 2 days of education, on top of all the other content that they put out there, it's a great certification. It's a great way to get a coach, get their feet wet, and make sure that they're moving in the right way, in the right direction with their athletes. There's plenty of other ones on there. If they got their cert online and that's all they've done, I'd be walking out the door pretty quick.
Yeah. The USI is a good one. I do not have that one, and that's one of the reasons I do not teach the Olympic lifts, because they are so involved. Mm-hmm. And we've gone through it in my collegiate program. We've gone through classes on them. But I mean, just the fact of the matter, and even just the athletes I'm working with, because of my inexperience with them, it's been something that we've shied away from almost on the whole.
Well, we've talked about too before, like the efficacy of doing some overhead movements with swimmers specifically in a dynamic movement like that with heavy load. You can spend your time on other things. It's not that they're not good, and it's not that they wouldn't benefit.
Yeah.
It's you have 60 minutes to 90 minutes to work with them.
Picking and choosing your battles.
Yeah, you're prioritizing, and hey, let's do a clean pull or a deadlift.
Yeah.
Do them fast. Do a dynamic pull, done. You don't necessarily have to learn to snatch.
Talking with that specific population, a lot of the times, again, this has come back to that idea that a feature or a flaw of something. In the case of swimmers, they have, usually the high-level swimmers have something called congenital laxity, or what like a lay population would know as double-jointedness. Yeah. And, that's good for swimming.
Too much passive range of motion.
Yeah, exactly. But what that means is, in that overhead position, that elbow is doing some weird hyperextension stuff that might not even be in the best interest of the athlete. So oddly enough, more so than weightlifting, what you see with what we do with some of our athletes is closer to powerlifting work.
Oh, yeah. And here, that's another thing with the powerlifting. People ask me, well, don't you do any strength work? You do snatch and clean and jerk. Do you do any strength work with the kid? Yeah. We do snatch, clean and jerk, and then we back squat. Mm-hmm. And then we do heavy pulls and remaining deadlifts and good mornings, and you name it, and we hit the dumbbells, and even occasionally bench every once in a while, even though we could do other things. But
what you just described, so I spent some time at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, and what you just described is the entire foundation of how they train their athletes. It is predicated on that weightlifting, and it is predicated on those big compound movements in that order that you just mentioned. So it is a step in the right direction for sure.
Let's see. Another certification. Yes, I'm going to say CrossFit. The CrossFit Level 1. And it's many other certifications. I mean, that's really how I got my feet wet and got started. Now, the Level 1 course has changed drastically over the years compared to when I first took it back in 2012. It's much more involved. They talk more about muscle group mitigation, fatigue. It's a little less cookie cutter and a little less rah-rah than it used to be. It used to be, hey, these are the movements. Now we're going to do 21:59 of burpees and pull-ups. Go! It's come quite far away from that. And I will say, if you are looking and someone has a CrossFit cert, that is something to take in consideration because it is a valuable tool. Now, not all trainers are created equal, obviously. I mean, even people with the USA weightlifting cert. The quality coach varies. But
if you look at the business model, they are trying to pass those things out. But I agree in that it is a good indication of if someone is a relatively well-rounded coach. I wouldn't say that it necessarily implies any kind of specialization, but it shows that they're at least willing to go above and beyond to advance their continued education.
No, absolutely. And I would say, now if they've taken a cert 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago, and they haven't made a movement to educate themselves at all further than that, that's a red flag to me as well. That goes to me, well, it's good enough. Well, it shouldn't be good enough because, as you know, I'm always trying to look for ways to do better at my craft. I'm always trying to help my clients a little bit better than I did before.
This is how you see those bullshit 1980s strength and conditioning coaches that still run rampant at the high school level. This is still how those guys are able to just take kids into their weight room and do some nonsense that's getting these athletes injured, is because they're fearful of continuing education. They took the NSCA, CSCS in 1983.
Yep.
They know how to
Which is a great certification.
It is a great certification.
It's awesome.
But they took it then, and they think this is good enough. They know how to do the compound. And if you think of the timeline that this profession has existed in, that is its most elementary phase. Where we've come in this time period is just we are leaps and bounds ahead of what it was at that time period. I mean, if you look at where that was then and where it is now, it's two totally different things. But again, I think a lot of these certifications don't go far enough. I'll give you an example here with the CSCS. So one of my employees, he's Jesse Rodriguez. He our registered dietitian, our sports dietitian for Ruthless Performance.
Nice.
Yeah, he has a CSCS certification. And if you were to give me his resume and you were to give me someone else's resume and they didn't have the CSCS, well, I wouldn't go with the person that didn't have the CSCS because it does imply that they are willing to continue with their education. And that in and of itself is valuable regardless of what the certification itself implies.
Absolutely, yeah. And I posted about this recently because we're hosting that strength and conditioning seminar for the high school coaches here. And someone asked me, well, why should I do that? Why would somebody want to do that? They've been doing it for X amount of years already. My thing is, and what I've always been told since I've been coaching, is the minute that you think that you know everything that you need to know to help your athletes, you should get the hell out of coaching.
You're done. Yeah.
Go do something else. You're a know-it-all. It's time to move on. You should be and that's anything. That's not just coaching. Any business professional out there, if you're a surgeon, doctor, teacher, whatever, you should be trying to improve yourself.
I think honestly, I think it's even more noticeable in this field. I think where someone might notice this even more is in nutrition. Think about how much nutrition changes on a yearly basis from one year to the next. Strength and conditioning is similar.
Keto.
Yeah. Now, I nothing against keto, nothing against a lot of these things, but the fact that they exist proves that the body of research is emerging and is changing fast.
Oh, it's always. I mean, there's different variables get addressed at different times. So, I just did a video on this about supplements, and I talked about specifically studies, research studies. You'll see a blog post on social media. It says, a study has shown, some studies have shown that this product has done, a study, you need 10, you need 20, you need 30, you need like a longitudinal study.
A body of evidence.
A body of evidence, not, like you said, 90 studies showed this, but hey, this one study showed it might work. It's bullshit.
Yeah, it's true. Again, this just comes back to the idea of the headline. So I do a lot of writing for some different magazines, for some different online publications. And one of the things that you'll notice when you're writing for these sites and when you're going through the editorial process is when you get above and beyond a third grade reading level, you'll actually get docked in terms of what your piece is worth, what your article is worth, because it doesn't convey the most clicks, which doesn't convey the most amount of ads.
Well, that's the state of exercise science and sports science in this country, in the United States. We don't value the academia behind it. It's more, well, does the picture look good? Is it a kitten with a barbell? Does the girl have six-pack abs and look hot? Mm-hmm. And how many clicks did it get, like you said? And is it written in jargon that everyone can understand necessarily?
How many Facebook shares does it have?
God, it's terrible. I'll give you evidence. That video I did on supplements, God, I can count the amount of views on two hands. Maybe one? I don't know. Maybe it grew since now. Go watch my video. It'll make me feel better, people. But if I put a post of a kitten holding a barbell or a baby, working out, people are all over it. 3 tips for better abs.
You think the people who share it then think they have some kind of informational edge that other people don't, which is why some of these more outside of the norm things tend to be so favored. I mean, if you consider, like, again, back to nutrition, it's like why isn't anyone focusing on the things that we all agree on? Why isn't anyone focusing on a diet where we're just all eating more vegetables, regardless of, some of the more controversial topics like high fat or whatever? Why?
Absolutely.
And no, where the hell is a high protein diet? There are very few people on the planet that have ever said anything bad about protein. Yeah. And it's completely.
And that's the other thing too. It's like, well, high protein diet, that sounds dangerous.
It's bad for your kidneys.
It's relative, like higher than you're intaking right now. It's higher than what you're used to, but it's probably closer to optimal what you need, even for the lay person that's not looking to put on a ton of mass.
Yeah.
They'll find better health benefits. But I wanted to move on here. This is big for you. I know it's big for you because you've done it in here. You've done a lot of work with other gyms in the northeastern Pennsylvania area with this. Do they assess the client? Does your trainer assess you when you walk in? Beyond shaking your hand and taking your money, do they ask about your goals? That's one. Do they adjust your training accordingly?
And injury history, taking all these variables. Yep.
And do they put you through a movement assessment? That could be something as formal as a whole FMS, a functional movement screening, or just as general as, hey, I want you to do these 4 exercises. I want you to bear crawl. I want you to duck walk. I want you to lunge. Oh, you can't do that? That's not good. You can't lunge? All right, let's see what the problem is. Right? Can you put a PVC pipe over your head without looking like you're going to die? If they're not doing at least some of these things within the first session, looking at, okay, how much volume can this person take? How sedentary are they? Are they in pretty good shape? Can I push them pretty hard? How well do they move? Are they duck-footed? How's their knee and hip alignment? Are they really tight? Are they immobile in the shoulders? If they're not doing something like that, folks, right off the bat, something as simple as that, you need to run the other direction out the door.
That's true. That, like you were saying, that's the problem with the cookie cutter program. So this is something that we've really evolved with over time. So initially, my assessments were super comprehensive. I mean, they would take you span 80 to 90 minutes of all kinds of things. But more recently, what we've been doing is in the preliminary assessment, we've got it down to 20 to 30 minutes, and then all we're looking to do at first is maximize their performance by negating some of their most rudimentary issues. So are the lats tight? Do they have some kind of knee pain, any kind of injury history, things like that? And then as they go through the first program, then we start adapting and changing accordingly in the subsequent cycles.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes, as good as an exercise is, you're like, man, I love these. These are great for my back. And they've worked on 90% of my athletes. Every once in a while, you go, they didn't really work. They didn't get much out of it. They didn't respond. Their body, just the way it's built, didn't respond well to it. And they just look miserable. Hey, let's take those out and let's try something else that might be a little bit more beneficial. I've had people, you just don't feel the glutes when they're doing a glute bridge, even with weight. Even if you change the angle. They don't feel it. They feel a little bit in the hamstrings, and doesn't matter how much weight you put on it. They just feel a bunch of pressure through their pelvis. So I'm like, okay, we'll do these. You put a BOSU ball, a little stability ball, underneath their feet and have them do a leg curl. They look like they're going to freak out and die because their hamstrings and glutes are just on fire. Yeah, it's crazy. Some people just don't respond to certain mechanisms, and you got to adjust the training.
A lot of that comes back to, so even in that particular case, I notice a lot of limb length plays a big role in it. So, and one thing people will recognize just intuitively is, so shorter people tend to have like a stockier torso. So shorter people will tend to have like big butt, big chest, whereas taller people will have like longer limbs,
big femurs.
Yep, just big, bigger arms as opposed to
squats.
Yeah, exactly. And what a lot of that kind of comes back to is just the fact that what they're working to their strong suits. And in the case of the strong person, their mechanical advantages lie in their arms and their legs versus in that torso.
No, absolutely.
So in that particular case, that could very easily be an issue where the hamstrings are taking over for the glutes.
One of the things I find entertaining lately, I've had a personal training client recently in the mornings. She's really loyal. She works hard. I think she's missed 2 sessions in the last year because she was sick. We're like just half dead. And awesome. Great results. I wish I was doing a study on it because the consistent data and the way she eats, she's healthy. She listens. She knows how to take care of her body. She's not working out all day and then going and smoking a cigarette and drinking 10 beers. It's what you're getting. All the variables are controlled, so it's really fun to program for her because I know almost to the T what I'm going to get out of her. And one of the things she said over the last year, every couple of weeks when we shift the training cycle, oh my God, these are terrible. Why are these so hard? They look so easy. They're so hard. Everything you have me doing right now makes me feel like I'm so weak. And if you never come across exercises that your trainer is giving you that don't address your weaknesses, that you suck at, you're definitely missing out. You should be getting programmed now within reason. If it's something they don't need to be doing, if it's somewhat dangerous to the point because they're that poor, they're that weak at it, they shouldn't be doing it. Like, let's say you're not very good at push-ups. Hey, let's do ring dips. That's probably a bad idea.
Yeah. Well, from an athletic perspective, a lot of so people need to eat. I'll talk about specifically in athletics here. What we're trying to do in the gym isn't necessarily what most people are trying to do in the gym. We are trying to maximize performance in the gym for their sport, but me personally and with Ruthless Performance as opposed to some other places, the way we're trying to do that is by maximizing their ability to train in their specific athletic domain. So a lot of our training is based on the stuff that they're weak at. So, we have a 4-week cycle and we kind of reset after each 4 weeks with new exercises. But the majority of the exercises are things that they're really not fond of, because the majority of the time we are kind of working on these things that they don't want to address otherwise. So it is a lot of these weaknesses that we're trying to fix.
Oh, yeah. I've had people legitimately ask me, I don't want to do a lunge ever again. Is there something else I can do? I don't want to squat, really. And I don't really want to lift weights. You don't want to exercise is my inner monologue. You just don't want to exercise. You don't want to try hard. You don't want to be uncomfortable. You have to do those things. If you're looking to actually get real results, and that's the thing, everyone's looking for that golden horseshoe. Oh my God, you never have to work out again, because you can just put on a stim unit, turn it up to 10, and it'll contract your muscles, and you'll get 6-pack abs. It doesn't work like that, folks. As simple and crazy as it sounds, you actually have to pick up some heavy-ish weights. You have to do repetitions.
Well, there's some sports psych to that as well. A lot of the time when people are responding to an exercise, but they might not necessarily like it, a lot of the times we kind of try to think about why it is they don't like it. So in the case of something like the squat, there's usually some kind of issue with the movement that prevents them from enjoying it. So people tend to flock to exercises that they enjoy and that they're good at. Mm-hmm. And in case of someone that might not be good at the squat, it's like, well, maybe we need to look at their thoracic spine, and we need to address whatever the issue is that needs to get them towards being able to do a squat so that they do enjoy it more, so that it is something that they're more competent at, something that they want to perform in the gym.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The client I was talking about, she recently told me that she didn't really enjoy squatting, hated it. She loves it now because she knows how to move right now. Everything's nice and stable. It's consistent how she moves. I don't really have to cue a whole lot. I don't have to say much anymore other than what's the next load we're putting on? How many reps are we doing? How many sets? What's the rest intervals? Things like that, because she's that far along in her training now, where before she hated them. Absolutely hated squats.
And even in opposition to that, so one of my first jobs in the strength and conditioning field was with a basketball team, and some of the things that I had them do would be along the lines of, say a back squat. And in that case, it's the things that are making them good again here. In this case, the things that are making them good at basketball are making them terrible at squats, particularly like long femurs. So it looks like they're just
ankle flexion.
Yeah, because those damn basketball shoes.
High tops.
That's a whole nother discussion.
Parents, if you're listening, and we'll talk about this at probably the next podcast, we're going to talk. Stop having them wear the high tops.
Except for Chuck Taylor All-Stars.
Yeah, if they want to wear the high tops in the game, that's one thing, or in practice, keep it to a minimum. It's like a weightlifter wearing weightlifting shoes all the damn time.
That's why they're so quad dominant.
It's terrible. Terrible for your ankle mobility, terrible for your quads, your knees. It completely alters the way your kid moves. Wear it for the game if they have to. If they have to have their Jordans, or what are they selling now?
Couldn't tell you.
What's the hot item? You don't really watch basketball, do you?
No.
My dad's probably at home watching 76ers right now.
I know. The last thing I know was when Under Armour came out with a basketball shoe. It's called like the Ice or something like that. And that was probably like 8 years ago now. So that's how out of it I am.
Yeah, I'm out of touch. I'm like, I don't know. The Sixers are doing good. Now they're not. I don't know. I've never been I tried basketball once when I was a kid. Sports Warehouse, I think, was the name of the team sponsor. So, like, right on Tobosh Island there in Schuylkill Haven, they had, like, a Sports Warehouse. It was like a little sporting goods store, before, Dick's and all that took over.
And Amazon.
And you got all that stuff there. You needed stuff, you went over there. And they funded our basketball team, I guess, and I think I went to, like, 3 I don't want to sound terrible, but maybe 3 practices. I hated it. I can't dribble. I didn't understand the fact that you're not supposed to have body contact, but you can, but you can't. I was like, get me out of here. Do I really have to go?
I still have no idea what I'm looking at when I watch a basketball
game. That
game.
is the only sport I've actually ever quit mid-season.
I was working with an NCAA 2A or a Division II basketball program. And I still can't tell you the rules of the game. I know how they're supposed to move. I know what the restrictions are, but yeah, what a god-awful sport.
Sorry for all you basketball fans out there. It's all in jest.
Yeah, I was a swimmer, so my winter sport was taken.
Hey, but you basketball players, you need to lift weights. For some reason, the football
True.
team's in lifting weights. The wrestling team lifts weights here and there. Even the track athletes who really need to be lifting, and the baseball team's in there lifting.
Yeah.
At least at my, alma mater. The basketball team doesn't really lift.
No.
I never understood that.
Well, that's because, again...
Front squats, people. If you're a basketball player, front squats.
That's the same reason. The same thing happens with swimmers. Is the reason that they're so good at their sport is because of their long levers. Long levers on the field, long levers in the pool make for good performance. In the gym, it sucks, and no one wants to do anything.
Yeah. Squats hurt my back. I had this one kid tell me one time. This is a couple years ago. I'm in the weight room up at the high school, and the kid tells me, "Coach, my mom says I shouldn't squat because it could hurt my back and my knees." I said, "Do you listen to your mom when she tells you to clean your room?" And he just looked at me and laughed. I said, "Get your ass in the squat rack."
Squatting is inherently good, but the way some people may be squatting may be bad.
Oh, there's always that.
So it could just be a matter of just breaking it down into its constituent elements and kind of building it back up into a more proficient squat.
Mm-hmm. So I want to get into the last little bit here before we close up is things to avoid. If your trainer or the prospective person, they're looking to ways to reinvent the wheel all the time. They have furniture sliders on your feet while you're doing kettlebell swings with a band around your neck. Run away. If it's not something fairly conventional, something fairly simple that you can grasp fairly quickly, move on. Even when I'm teaching the snatch, which is a fairly complex movement, I start with something simple as an upright row and a Romanian deadlift. Can you hinge? Good. We got past the hinge. Let's move on. You got to walk before you run. You got to crawl before you walk. You can't throw 6 different movements in one at somebody and expect them to do well and to get anything out of it.
When we have coached Olympic lifts, our athletes have not even touched a barbell in the first week.
Pipe?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, even by then, when you're doing that, their movement structure should be pretty good when they're squatting. If they can't squat, what are you going to take them a full clean if they don't know how to squat yet? That's ass backwards.
Well, and part of that too, and one of the things I do understand from the business perspective here is people require a training effect. So people want to feel like they accomplished something. And one of the things that I'm fortunate with the athletes I work with, I've built out such an amount of trust that they kind of some exercise sessions may feel like they haven't accomplished much because they are doing things like just staying with not even having touched a barbell, but because of that, we're building up these skills. So it's always this battle of the athlete feeling like they've accomplished something versus what the research actually says and what the long-term timeline indicates. Anyone can make you tired.
Oh, yeah. My kid makes me tired.
Or 10 minutes of burpees make you tired, but it might not be progressing you as an athlete or just as an individual looking to be in better shape.
Oh yeah, I could do a burpee challenge every month of the damn year, but it's not going to make me any better physical specimen.
And you could lose some fat off of it, but at the same time,
you can be weak as shit.
And if you are doing that and you do invoke some kind of issues at the shoulder, or the knee, or the hip, you could be leading to some long-term issues where you're not able to continue training for an extended period of time. Again, fitness is in it for the long game.
We are running out of time. Lack of strength training. Lack of complex multi-joint movements in general. Never squatting. Your coach never has you squat, and they never have you pick up a weight. Out the door. Lack of basic structure. If they never change your training, and it's in a noticeable manner, a meaningful manner, every couple of weeks, every couple of months, there needs to be a shift. You need to move on. Use of high-skilled movement in a high-volume application, you need to move away from. If they're doing advanced plyo movements and they're doing it for a half hour, move on. John, I wanted to give you the last bit to talk about your business. Let people know where to find you.
First, okay, before I even get into that, one of the last things I wanted to mention, and this is not necessarily specific to fitness, but just the idea of when you are asking someone that you are going to hire for some kind of good or service, one of the things to ask them is, if you as a